How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video we're going to be talking about the double game week 27 preview. It's been quite an extended break since our recording of the last video, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying double game week 26, and as those fixtures conclude tonight, you end up with a green arrow. Just wait and see for tomorrow for the team selection to see if I got a green arrow, but as I mentioned, this is the double game week 27 preview, and the talking points in this video are going to revolve around Kevin De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes, and Harvey Barnes replacements. Finally, we're going to be looking at those captaincy options and deciding who you guys should be captaining going to that deadline for that game week 27. If that's something you're interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So the watch list has been updated with 2 new entries. Unfortunately, due to the injury to Harvey Barnes, we had to take him out of the watch list and we brought in Diogo Jota. Jack Grealish is still remaining in the watch list because I'm still waiting to see what's happening with his injury situation, because if he is back from injury, he is quite an appetizing option with that blank game week 29 coming up with Aston Villa having a fixture. So he's on the watch list purely because I want to see what happens in the press conference, but also be talking about Jack Grealish a little bit later on. Gareth Bale is the new exciting entry into the watch list. Maybe a little bit of a knee jerk there after a good first game in double game week 26, so whether he performs tonight is yet to be seen, but I'm pretty sure if he bangs tonight, everyone's going to be looking to bring Gareth into the FPL sides and could even be a potential captaincy option going into that double game week 27. So 9.3, relatively expensive, more of the more premium midfielders, and with 3 goals and 2 assists in 361 minutes, are relatively good stats there. I think the thing about Gareth Bale is that at the start of the season, when he came into that Spurs lineup, wasn't looking that good, match fitness wasn't that great, but I think that could be a little bit understandable coming from that Real Madrid setup where he wasn't playing that much, but seems to have picked up his form right now, seems to be looking good, and Gareth Bale is one of my personal favorite footballers, so as soon as I can bring him into my side, I probably will. So he's also a watch and see with that fixture tonight, as I mentioned, and we still want to kind of see if his match fitness is up to scratch where he can be starting 90 minutes in both the midweek and the weekend fixtures. And then finally, Diogo Jota is also a little bit of a watch and see here. He's potentially going to be starting tonight against Chelsea, so keep your eyes on that one. But the reason he's here is I think that Liverpool attack definitely needs some fresh faces in it, as it's looking a little bit lackluster recently. So Diogo Jota provides that perfect alternative at 6.6, so really cheap there, considering he's an attacker for Liverpool, and Liverpool usually are quite a good attacking side, but not this FPL season. But that doesn't mean that Diogo Jota still can't do well. With 5 goals, 0 assists, and 599 minutes, I'm expecting him to get a lot more minutes in the upcoming game weeks if he is back from fitness. So just keep your eyes on that one. We'll get news tonight with that lineup, and if he's on the bench, potentially look at him starting in the upcoming game week. So these are the 3 watch lists. As I mentioned, a lot to wait and see on these players. Definitely not confirmed watch list options, but these are the players that I currently am monitoring with my double game week 27 transfers. So now going on to double game week 28 question mark. So why there is a question mark is that this game week has not been confirmed yet, but if you remember correctly from the previous previews and the previous team selections and the previous ultimate guides, we mentioned that there was a possibility of a double game week 28 for Everton and Aston Villa. And the reason why this looks quite juicy is that both the Everton and the Aston Villa fixtures are quite good in double game week 28 if they do have it. So that's why you could potentially be looking at bringing an Everton option or an Aston Villa option, but it has not been concrete yet, so no confirmed news yet. We hopefully will be getting some more news before the game week 27 deadline, and if we don't get news before that deadline, I'm pretty sure that this game week won't be happening. I think the only reason FPL announced those fixtures for that double game week 26 was because it was a Friday deadline, so they could actually announce it after, but because double game week 27's deadline is on a Saturday afternoon, I don't think that gives enough time for them to announce a fixture. So look out for news on FPL's website and also on their Twitter account, because if there is a double game week 28, you're definitely going to want to prioritize those Everton and those Aston Villa options. But this hasn't been confirmed yet, so I'm only going to be talking about confirmed news when I do refer to players from both of these lineups. So now going on to the confirmed news that is double game week 27, which is the game week that we are approaching. It is a double game week for 2 sides, Man City and Southampton. Now you're probably prioritizing Man City options before those Southampton options. Just from a common sense point of view, I think it's understandable just because of the form Man City have been in and the lack of form that Southampton have showed. But I definitely think that you have to aim for a triple up or at least as many Man City players as you can fit in for this game week. So prioritize those 3 transfers if you don't have a triple up already. If you're perfectly fine with a double up, that's also okay. But I would try and get 3 Man City options, especially with the form they're looking at. We're going to be talking about later on that double defense, double attack when we're talking about Kevin De Bruyne. But right now, I just wanted to give you a reminder that it is a double game week 27 for 2 sides in the Prem. So now going on to the first talking point, we're going to be covering Harvey Barnes replacements. So I've gone for 4 options here on screen. All of these options are relatively good. What I try to do is I try to go for players that are cheaper than Harvey Barnes. Some of these come in a little bit cheaper, some of them come quite close, but we'll be referring to them just because they are cheaper. You could go for someone like a Gareth Bale or Heung-min Son if your budget can stretch. I mean, I would probably go for those options as they're quite better for value with those upcoming fixtures, but that doesn't mean that these budget enablers aren't looking that good. So the 4 options I've got on screen here are Rafinha, Lingard, Grealish, and then finally Saka from Arsenal. So my favorite option is going to be Rafinha. If you just look at his stats from an attacking point of view, is really high up there, if not the first in the Prem at the moment for some of the stats. He's definitely in the top 5. So Rafinha is a great shout. The nice thing about Rafinha as well is that he's quite cheap. So if you want to bench him for that West Ham fixture, for that Chelsea fixture in game week 28, you can do that, and then you can bring him on for that Leeds against Fulham game happening in blank game week 29. So the nice thing about all 4 of these options as well is that they all have blank game week 29 fixtures. So yes, Lingard, Grealish, Saka, and Rafinha all play in blank game week 29. So I got you guys covered there. So Rafinha is my first option. My second option is going to be Jack Grealish. So the thing with Jack Grealish, as I mentioned in the watch list, is we just have to see if he's back from his injury. Such a quality player. Aston Villa are missing him desperately from an attacking and a defensive point of view. I think that he's affecting both sides of the ball, but Jack Grealish is a great shout there, dropping in value by quite a bit, and with those upcoming fixtures, they look quite good if he's going to be back for that Wolves fixture. Then plays Newcastle. The Spurs game in blank game week 29 isn't the greatest in the world, but I still think there is a potential for him to get a return. Then my next favorite option is going to be Lingard. From a differential point of view, low ownership, great returns recently. The only thing about Lingard is that he doesn't play in game week 28. That's not because West Ham have a blank, it's because he is on loan from Manchester United, and there is a clause in the contract for loanees that they can't play against their ownership side. So he will be blanking in game week 28, but that's perfectly fine. I mean, you might not wanted to have played him at all, as that's probably a little bit of a tougher game, but I just wanted to give you guys a reminder that he won't be playing in game week 28, but he still could be a good shot with fixtures against Leeds and Arsenal coming up. And then the final option we're going to be talking about is Saka from Arsenal. Now, in terms of consistency, Saka this season has been a great option, a great budget enabler, and with fixtures against Burnley, Spurs, and also West Ham looking not that great, that's kind of the only reason why he's last on these list of options. So that's why I've gone for Saka, but if you want to go for him, he's also a good shot, nice differential option, and with the fixtures being a little bit tougher though, I think I might prefer some of the other options. But all 4 of these options should get you some returns in the upcoming game weeks, so you are quite spoiled for choice. So now going on to the big talking point, and probably the one that you came to this video for, is should you buy KDB and what you should be doing with your Man City assets. So why I'm saying what you should be doing with your Man City assets, a lot of us already have that Man City triple up, whether it be double defense, double attack, whatever it is. We're going to be going in this video and deciding what to do if you have those combinations and whether you should actually be buying KDB at all. So the first combination I'm going to be talking about is if you do own the double attack. So you probably own Gundogan and Sterling if you do own that double attack. You could also own someone like Foden or Mahrez. I won't touch on those players too much because I think they're more differential options, whereas Sterling and Gundogan are probably the more assured options in those lineups. So if you do own Sterling and Gundogan, I personally wouldn't be taking those players out for Kevin De Bruyne. Now, while Kevin De Bruyne could score more than both of those, I just think it's a little bit of a sideways move in a double game week to take out a Man City attacker for another Man City attacker that could also be benched. But if you do own a double Man City defense, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. I personally own a double defense from Man City with Diaz and Cancelo, and I think it's perfectly fine to take out a Man City defender to bring in Kevin De Bruyne. And the reason why I'm saying this is that we've seen that there's been mass rotation with that Man City defense. I don't think that's going to get any easier. I think in the upcoming game weeks, there's still going to be a lot of rotation there, so we can't really predict who's going to be starting in that Man City centre-back position, and also in those fullbacks. And with Nathan Ake coming back from injury, he should be training after this game week, and that only adds another player into the mix there with that defensive rotation. So I think it's perfectly fine to take out a Man City defender. I think the Man City range of defense is still going to be good for the upcoming game weeks, but it's just simply too hard to predict who's going to be starting in the Champions League, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the Prem all at once. So that's why I think it's perfectly fine to take out a defender. Just make sure that you bring in a defender that does quite well. What I've kind of worked out is if you are going to be taking out someone like a Bruno Fernandes and then also taking out Cancelo, you should be left with about 5.0 in the bank at a minimum. And you could also buy someone like a Matt Target with that. With a potential double game week 28, that could be quite an attractive option. But in terms of Kevin De Bruyne as a whole, and if you're simply just looking at bringing Kevin De Bruyne in, I still would raise a little bit of caution to you that he could be rotated this week. Just remember that he has come back newly from that injury, and while he did play 90 minutes I do believe in double game week 26, that doesn't mean that he's going to be fresh to play 2 game weeks with that Champions League approaching. So the current consensus is that he probably should be benched for that Southampton game, with that Champions League fixture coming up next. But the thing that I would argue is that Man City game against Borussia Mönchengladbach, they actually did quite well in, so they might bench Kevin De Bruyne because they already have that goal advantage and simply play him against Southampton. I mean, if he is benched in the Champions League, it's going to be great news for us FPL managers, because then you'll be starting against Fulham as well. And I mean, I think that Man City should get a comfortable win there. So I think if you don't have any other fires to put out, I would definitely be looking at Kevin De Bruyne to bring in, but I would raise that word of caution that there is a potential rotation risk and a managed minutes in double game week 27, just because of the fact that he's come back from injury, and it might not be that realistic that he's going to be playing 4 games in the span of 2 weeks. But I definitely like Kevin De Bruyne. I think if you have him, great captaincy option, and probably the one that I would be looking at. But now let's get on to the more interesting talking point, which is, should you sell Bruno Fernandes? This could be for someone like Kevin De Bruyne, and that's why I didn't want to cover Bruno when I spoke about him, but I would probably be selling Bruno Fernandes to bring in Kevin De Bruyne if I had the exact money. I think it makes it a little bit more of an interesting debate if you don't have the correct money and you can't simply do one free transfer to upgrade Bruno to Kevin De Bruyne. I personally would have to take a hit of a -4 to take out one of my Man City defenders. And do you want to do that with a double game week 27 with 2 nice fixtures there that I think that Man City could do quite well in? Would you be doing that? I don't know, and that's kind of the debate that I've been in. But if you do have the exact money to do Kevin De Bruyne in and Bruno Fernandes out, I probably would look at it. We spoke about in the deadline with Dayvy stream for double game week 26 about how the United fixtures are looking quite tough, and with Bruno Fernandes, he's got the reputation of being quite a good player against the weaker opposition, but then against the stronger teams, he relatively doesn't do that well. So that's just something to keep in your mind. I think that Man City fixture is basically a write-off. I would even maybe be looking at benching Bruno Fernandes if I did own him in game week 27. Then West Ham have been good defensively, then he has a blank, and then Brighton, and then Spurs. So quite tough fixtures on the horizon for Man United and Bruno Fernandes in general. So that's why I would potentially be looking at taking that move to bring Kevin De Bruyne in. But that's all that this move depends on. It's who you're going to be bringing in. If you're going to be downgrading Bruno Fernandes to bring in someone like Harry Kane, then you could also look at that. Also, what I wanted to raise is the captaincy debate. So when we look at these premium assets, I always speak about, are you going to be captaining them in the foreseeable future? And when I look at these United fixtures, I can honestly say that I probably won't. Probably the only game week that I'll be looking to captain Bruno Fernandes is going to be game week 33 when they face Leeds. So game week 33, quite a lot of game weeks coming up. I think that that's relatively fine taking out Bruno Fernandes. But then the final debate I wanted to mention to you guys is that he does probably have a lot of budget in your lineup. And what I kind of think of this season is that I think team value, while it does hold a lot of value, usually on those wild cards, I think that we've seen a lot of budget options coming up in that midfield and that forward line, and even in that defense, that you can simply get away with losing quite a bit of team value or having a bad team value in general. I mean, just look at my team value, absolutely terrible throughout the season, and I still have been getting on quite nicely. So don't worry too much about that Bruno Fernandes losing your value, as I think in the upcoming game weeks, you're going to be using a wild card. You simply can manage to fit Bruno in and maybe downgrade another department. So should you sell Bruno Fernandes? I think you should if it is a free transfer to bring in someone like Kevin De Bruyne, but if you have to take a -4 hit, it might be a little bit more sticky. The thing I always mention though is that next game week against Man City, I would probably maybe even be looking at benching him. So could there be another option that I bring in for the short term, even if I do lose that team value, that's going to be getting more points from my own FPL side, and I actually do think that they could be. So now going on to the final talking point, as we usually do, we're going to be talking about captaincy. So hands down, my favorite options are going to be whatever Man City option you are considering. While players like Harry Kane has Crystal Palace, Mo Salah has Fulham, Danny Ings even has a double, I simply just can't look past captaining a Man City option. So whoever you own, if it's Kevin De Bruyne, excellent, that's the best option in my opinion. If it's going to be Sterling, you could also look at him. Gundogan, you can look at him. The defenders, I would raise a little bit of a caution there because of that mass rotation that we have seen. But if you're relatively confident that maybe a Cancelo is going to start both of the double game week fixtures, then he could even be a good shout there because Man City's defense has just been so rock solid. But I definitely favor the attackers here. So my own personal lineup, I only own Gundogan from an attacking point of view, so I'd be looking at captaining him. But I think that Kevin De Bruyne and Sterling are probably my 2 favorite options. So if you want to go mega differential, maybe look at a Mo Salah or a Danny Ings or a Harry Kane, a Gareth Bale, as I mentioned. But I think the majority of people will be going for Man City because there's just so few teams with the double, and Man City just being such a quality side in terms of form, I think that you should basically be looking at them, and you might be mega differential or you might have a massive amount of courage if you don't. So going on to the Fantasy Football Hub predictor tool, and these are the options that are predicted to score the most points over double game week 27. So when I looked at the predictions, basically the top 6 or top 8 were all Man City options. So I kind of faltered this a little bit. I wanted to include Mo Salah in here just to give you guys a comparison. But as you can see, Sterling and De Bruyne are by far the best options. This obviously guarantees that they're going to be playing 90 minutes. So while that might not be true, if they do start both games or get the most minutes as possible, they are predicted to score the most points. So Sterling, De Bruyne, whether you have both of those or only one of them, look to captain them. But with myself, I think that Gundogan could also be a nice option there. Mo Salah, not the worst in the world compared to Gundogan, but I definitely think from a high ceiling point of view, the Man City players are where you should be looking. So this is basically a wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new or have not subscribed yet. As I mentioned in the introduction, stay tuned for that team selection tomorrow. Otherwise, enjoy the games tonight and stay safe. I'm going to be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.